Hello book friends, I'm Allie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be wrapping up all of the books that I was able to read in September, and I'm going to discuss my hodgepodge of a TBR that I've got for October. I'm just going to put all of this into one video. I am going to throw in here that my video schedule has been very out of whack for the past month, maybe even 2 months, because my family has been trying to go through some scheduling changes, and so we are getting everything nailed down, and hopefully this month I will have content for you on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So Mondays I'm going to try to have either week reading vlogs or weekend reading vlogs, depending on which I do for the week. And then on Wednesdays and Fridays I'll just have normal whatever content. So that's what you can hopefully be looking forward to from here on out. That's my goal. Now, without further ado, I'm going to tell you about the books that I read in September. The first book I was reading at the beginning of September was Arcanum Unbounded, and I read a short story and 2 novellas from this. The first was The Hope of Elantris, and that follows the Scion Ash as he goes back into the city. It pieces together a part of Elantris that is missing whenever you're reading the story. Towards the end, you don't actually know where the Scion went, and this story kind of goes back and pieces it together. And it also answers another question that I had whenever I read Elantris, which was what happened to the children at the end of the story? Where were they when everything was kind of going down in the main action? And that story goes back and explains what was happening during that time period, and I absolutely loved that story. I was so happy to have that piece that put everything kind of back together, and I also really enjoyed the characters that we read about for that story. I did give that one 5 stars, and I do highly recommend it. The second story that I read was The Emperor's Soul, and that story follows a really interesting magic system. I loved the magic system in that story. They work with soul stamps, and Brandon Sanderson has an excerpt after or before the story that tells you that he came up with that idea whenever he went to, I believe it was China, and kind of studied their culture, and they have stamps on their artwork, and he thought that that was a really interesting idea, so he turned it into his own story. And I think that that's really neat. It follows a girl who has been taken as a prisoner because she was forging art, and she ends up, they want her to forge a soul for the emperor who has been wounded. And this all happens right at the very beginning, so I'm not spoiling anything. But it is her story, and about her being a prisoner and having to try to make a soul for a person who doesn't really have it anymore because his injury basically left him as just a shell. He explains his magic system in such an intricate way through telling her story as she's doing this task, and I don't want to give anything away, so I can't really tell you a whole lot about it. It's not that long. It's, I think, maybe 100 pages, but it is really well done, and I really recommend if you want just a really interesting magic system. The only thing that I was really upset about was that I wanted more of that magic system and more of that particular world, but it does connect into the Cosmere, so that's another really good thing if you're interested in all of his Cosmere. I gave that one 5 stars, and if you like Brandon Sanderson, I would say that you should go check out that story. The next one I read out of this was The 11th Metal, and that story is a somewhat prequel to the Mistborn series, so you can read it before you actually read the series. He says in here that it won't spoil anything. It follows Kelsier as he is learning to control his powers, and it gives you a taste of the magic system in that particular world. Since I'm going to be reading Mistborn: The Final Empire here soon, I wanted to start with that one to kind of introduce me to the world. So it was really neat. I really enjoyed learning how the magic system works, And I've heard from other people that Kelsier's a really cool character, so it was cool to get a glimpse of how he was in the, or how he is in the story. I gave that story 5 stars. I really enjoyed reading it. It is, I think, around 100 pages also, so it's a really quick read, and if you really like Mistborn and you've already read it, I would say definitely go check it out because it's pretty cool. Next, I finished The Library of Legends, which I've been reading for quite a while now, and I finally wrapped it up. I gave this one 4 stars. I thought that it was really well done. I love the fact that she talked about actual events that happened. And she tells at the end of the book that she wrote this somewhat from her father's perspective because he went through something very similar to this story, and also she had firsthand accounts from other people who went through this. And so it's really interesting, historically accurate story about when people in China had to make a trek to safer places when the Japanese were attacking them. And it's very sad. It's also heartwarming to understand how some people fought so hard for their country, and it's very eye-opening. That's one of the things that just was so captivating about this story. It was so eye-opening to see the struggles that they went through, and honestly, I gave it 4 stars because I went into this with a little bit of a different idea about what it was going to be about. I thought there was going to be more magic in it than what there really was, and there were magical elements, and you did have a subplot with the spiritual beings having to leave China because the war is ravaging the land. And so you do have a glimpse of magic, but the magic is not as on the surface as what I had originally thought that it was going to be. But nonetheless, I still think that this story is fantastic. I think that if you enjoy historical fantasy, that this is a really good book to read, and it probably will make you cry. It definitely made me cry. Next, I read New Kid by Jerry Craft. This is the Newbery Award-winning book for 2020, and I am doing a full review of this next week. I will have that posted up, and I'm going to go into depth about what I thought about this book. I gave this book 4.5 stars. The only thing that I had a minor problem with was that he tackled too many subjects that he couldn't fully resolve. And it doesn't really have a plot. So you have the story of this boy named Jordan. He is starting at a very fancy private school because his mother wants him to have more connections in the world. And you see a lot of diversity, you see a lot of bullying, you see a lot of topics that are going to come up for a middle grader and things that they may be going through. And I think he did a wonderful job discussing some of these topics through characters and through the story, but it doesn't actually have a defined plot to it. That being said, I think that this is excellent, and I look forward to doing a full review chatting just about this book. The next book I finished was also a novella, and I believe it was around 130 pages. I can't remember for sure. It's on my Kindle, so I'll just put a picture of it for you. It's Down Among the Sticks and Bones. That is by Shawnee McGuire, and I gave it 4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I heard that it's a good idea to start with the second book of the series instead of the first because the first spoils the second. So I did. I started with the second one, and I really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the magical world that you go into that has werewolves and vampires and this kind of dark, what do they call it? The Moors? Not Moors. Was it Moors? I liked the dark atmosphere of the castles and the creepy windmill on the hill. It just all came together, and it made a really cool story. And it really got me how in the beginning you see the parents really causing the daughters, the twin daughters in the story, to have emotional turmoil. And I thought that she showed that type of turmoil really well at the beginning, and it really makes you feel things as a parent to see the way that some people just really push certain roles on a child and expect them to live up to what they think that they need to be. And I think that it was a great story. I'm looking forward to continuing on with the series. Next, I finished The Tea Dragon Society. This book was adorable. Oh my goodness. The illustrations are beautiful. The story is so sweet, and I just can't express how much I love this graphic novel. I can't wait to read the second one. I'm sure it's going to be just as cute. And the third one comes out, I believe, maybe next month, maybe this month. It comes out soon. This story follows Greta, who is a apprentice for a blacksmith, which I believe is her mother. I'm pretty sure that it was her mother. Anyway, she happens upon a tea dragon that is being bullied as she's going home one day, and she stops and helps the little guy get home, and after that she gets brought into the Tea Dragon Society, and they teach her about tea dragons, and she meets this other girl named Minette, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and they start to become friends, and it's just so sweet. It's such a sweet story, and I highly recommend, if you enjoy cute little fluffy stories, read this one because it's precious. Next up, I did a buddy read through the month of September with my best friend, and we read Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and I had very mixed feelings coming out of this story. I initially gave it 3 stars, and I bumped it up to 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed reading this. I enjoyed the whimsy of it. I enjoyed the story of Caraval and getting involved in the game. I wasn't a particular fan of her writing style. I thought her similes were just a little bit too flowery for me, and the main character was just a little bit frustrating at times. And the ending bothered me a little bit because I can't give spoilers, so I can't really talk about it, and that's really frustrating because I really want to share with you guys how I feel, but nonetheless, I enjoyed reading this. I'm going to read it again because I want to see if my opinions change on it, and also, now that I know how it ends, I want to go back and see what I missed in the beginning that would help piece the whole puzzle together from the get-go, if you know what I mean. So anyway, I like this story. I'm planning to read the second one with her also. I look forward to continuing with these characters, and hopefully everything makes up for the things that bothered me in this book. The final book that I read this month was Final Girls by Riley Sager. I really enjoyed this book. I gave this a 4-star rating, and I thought that it was really well done. I thought that I had it figured out, and then it kept going, and I was like, oh, I didn't expect that. But my best friend who did read this with me voiced her opinions toward the beginning, and she was actually more right than I was when we came to the end, and we both kind of called a few things, but the ending still, just like out of the blue, I was like not expecting what happened. I did have a few issues with how cleanly everything wrapped up in the end, because there was like a lot of climax in the center of the book toward the end, and then it was like kind of neatly tied up, and that bothered me. But otherwise, I thought that this book was incredible, and I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to read more of Riley Sager, which I am going to be doing in October. So now that I have wrapped up everything that I read in September, I'm going to quickly walk you through my TBR for October. I'm not going to give a lot of insight on these books because I'm going to talk about these in reading vlogs, and I'm going to wrap it up for you at the end of the month. So I'm just going to show you the book and give a brief synopsis. First off, I have a couple books that I need to finish that I started in September and I didn't quite get to the end of. And actually, I started this one in August, and my friend Lindsay has been so understanding because my life's been pretty hectic. I am wrapping this one up this week, thankfully, and mailing it back to her. But we were buddy reading Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas, and I'm really enjoying this. the beginning really bugged me, but we're really getting into some action now, and I'm enjoying where the book's going. So I'm going to be finishing up this week, and I'm going to be getting her book back to her, which I have been notating, and I'm excited to see how it ends. Also, I started The Turn of the Screw by Henry James a day or two ago, and I thought I was going to have this finished by yesterday, but I didn't have time, and it's only like 90 pages, and I've only got like 50 pages left, so I'll finish this probably tomorrow, and then talk about it later. Since I'm reading The Turn of the Screw, I also wanted to read The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, because this is supposed to be somewhat of a retelling of The Turn of the Screw, and I'm really wanting to see how they are similar, compare and contrast these two stories. I'm going to do a video on that later and let you guys know what I think about these two stories back to back. Buddy reads for this month. My best friend and I are reading Home Before Dark. We started it together last month, and then we kind of forgot about it because we read Final Girls, and so now I'm coming back to it, and I'm going to finish it. And also, we're going to read The Diviners by Libba Bray, so we're going to read these together and discuss, and I am looking forward to both of them because they're both supposed to be kind of spooky. Also, if we finish those two books, we're going to try to read Lock Every Door Together by Riley Sager, which I'm also excited about because she's already read it and she loved it and she wants me to read it with her, so we're going to try to read these together and see how I feel about it. Another one that I started in September, and I was listening to it on audio, and the book went back to the library, and then I had to wait on it. While I was waiting on it, I was able to pick up a copy at my used bookstore, and then it came back through the library, so I still haven't finished it, is what I'm trying to say, and that is The School for Good and Evil, and I'm really enjoying this one. I am 230 pages into it. So I'm going to be wrapping this one up this month also, sooner than later, because I've got the audiobook back now. I'm also still reading Skyward with my husband. We're reading it together. I've already talked about this. I don't know how much of this one I'm going to be reading this month, but I know I will be picking it up off and on and reading it here and there, and I am still really enjoying it. Now I'm going to talk about the spooky books that I'm hoping to get to in October, other than the buddy reads that I'm doing. I started The Shining last year and I didn't get to finish it, so I'm hoping to finish it this year. I have The Halloween Tree by Ray Bradbury that I'm really hoping to read this year also. It's really short, so. I have The Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. This is a Hercule Poirot book. And also like a cozy mystery, so that sounds pretty cool this time of the year. I have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I started last year, and I'm hoping to finish this year. And I have The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell, which I'm really hoping to get to because it seems really creepy, and I'm just kind of in the mood for some creepy stuff. I have 3 middle grade books and 1 fantasy that I'm hoping to pick up this month. The Train to Impossible Places I started this month, and I completely forgot all about it. I also want to read The Magic Misfits. I didn't get to it in September, so I'm really wanting to get into it in October so I can read the 4th one and finish the whole series. And lastly, I have The City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab, which I'm really hoping to read because there is a 24-hour readathon that's going to happen with Alexandra Roslin and some other people. Olivia reads a latte. I think there's another person also going to be involved with it, but they're planning on reading this and watching Hocus Pocus, so I'm really wanting to get involved with that, and this book's really short and it looks really creepy, and I am here for it right now. The last book that I'm hoping to maybe kind of pick my way through is Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Ames, I believe is how you pronounce the last name. I've heard this is really funny and fantastical, and they are mercenaries, I think mercenaries who are like retired and then come back into action maybe? Yeah, so anyway, I heard it's really funny, and I just kind of want to read something lighthearted and funny, and I'm in the mood for some fantasy too, so I thought this might be a good palate cleanser. So that is all of the stuff that I read in September, all of the stuff that I would like to read in October, which is very ambitious. I always am over ambitious anyway, but I have a lot of things that I'm excited to read, and I can't help but overdo my TBR every time. So if you have read some of these books and you want to chat about it with me, drop me a comment down below. Or if you're going to be reading some of these books this month, let me know, and maybe we could chat about it. Until next time, guys, I'll see you later.